Hey, welcome back to Mystikai. See, I always say it like that because if it doesn't sound mystical, Magnus, then I clearly don't know what I'm talking about, right? And so, welcome back, guys. We got a wonderful guest for you today, Magnus Stokoe.
Thank you.
Magnus is a master of the runes. Oh, probably not master, right? You're probably not that haughty, are you? But he's going to be talking with us today about a lot of things. We're going to go through runes. We're going to go through metalworking, the ritual act of metalworking. Maybe dive into a little bit of Norse mythology. We'll see where the conversation goes. But Magnus is an awesome dude so far. We'll see how it happens. We'll see how it goes. I'm just kidding. I'm messing with you, man. But he's also a metalworker with the Sacred Smith Forge. And we'll include all those details within the podcast at the end as well, so that you guys can find out where he is and where his stuff is. But welcome, Magnus. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, OD. Thank you.
So tell me, how did you... We were talking a little bit before the show about how it kind of started early for you. That seems to be the case for a lot of people. Tell us about your journey. What brought you to where you are now, working within this tradition, working within that lens and seeing the world through the eyes of the runes?
I got into... All right, let's roll it all the way back. So I grew up in a... my parents were, and still are, very open and accepting people, but they were also seekers. So as I was growing up, I was aware of different modalities like healing and Buddhism and all of these different things. They never enforced Christianity on me or my brother. So I think their philosophy is always, as long as you're not hurting anyone or yourself, go ahead. So that was the fertile ground. And also in the house, they had so many different books. Like I mentioned the sacred mushroom in the cross in RE one day, right? And my parents got called to the school going like, what the blistering is this kid doing? What? So, but that's the kind of thing. Like my dad was into, no, he actually studied religious archaeology. So he knew all about Nag Hammadi scrolls, and he knew, it's like, I've had very deep conversations with my parents ever since I was a child. And so when I think I got into Norse myth when I was in my mid-teens, and then, and they really spoke to me. I could really, like, more than, my mum was very much into Tolkien, Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. So I knew all about that kind of stuff. There was runes all over that house, the Tolkien runes. But it wasn't until sort of around about the late 80s, early 90s that I actually deep dived into the runes. And it's been a process ever since then. So the runes and Norse mythology have become my primary operating system, my OS, for understanding.
Nice. I like that analogy.
Yeah, that's I am programmed in 24-bit characters. So yeah. So that's how it is. And so like, and it's been amazing. Yeah, and like, I'm more than neck deep. I'm over my head, right? I'm out there. I'm swimming. Yeah. It's like, so I see a lot of people are just dipping their toes in, and I'm the one out in the middle of it going, fine. So there you go. That's me.
It's wonderful out here. The water's great. Come on.
Don't look down. That's okay.
Well, that's something that's difficult for a lot of people. We, in general, I think people like to hedge their bets. I think people tend to err on security rather than freedom, right? Those two kind of poles. The freedom to go that deep into the water takes courage. It takes bravery. It takes sometimes a lack of care for your own well-being at times. Like, to really dive deep.
But when you feel something brush against your leg, that's the moment. That's like, no, screw this. Where's the boat? I'm getting out, and it's like, that's when it becomes really real. It's like, you like when things actually start to happen to you, when you see the fish or this giant eel or whatever, and you go, oh shit, there's things in here that could eat me. And yeah, there are, definitely are, but so what?
Oh no, was that Jormungandr? Was that Jormungandr that just went by me? Well, I love that.
Sorry,
I love
that was a mythology reference.
Looking
That was
through.
Go on. Sorry. Right, this is my ADHD. Right, I babble consistently and completely. So, and I also lose the plot. So yeah, please, bear with me. If there's
That's my job.
silence, I will try.
I'll bring you back.
Excellent.
I tend to be that way for most people, anyways. I'm an Aquarius, so I'm an airy kind of mental case. Like I get stuck in my head too. But over the years, I've developed a way of kind of keeping myself practically rooted so that I don't get too flighty, right? And so I've developed that as a skill set, and I think I can deploy it pretty well for others who get up in that headspace, right?
Yeah. But
it's not comfortable being stuck up there, is it?
You did mention that you're having Dave Zilla on as well. Yeah, I'm plugging Dave Zilla. He's another Aquarius. So yeah. Anyway, sorry. Plugging your next episode.
You know what I find funny about that? Growing up, Aquariuses, I didn't find very many, right? I didn't have very many in my life. But as the older I get, the more I find. The more attracted to me. And we tend to be kind of solitary creatures. We don't interact with each other all that well. At least classically, that's what they say. And, but I find that they keep appearing. So I don't know what that is. I guess I'll have to lean into that. But I'll talk to Dave about it.
I have yet to meet in the flesh another Scorpio. It's weird. It's weird. And it's like, I met online occasionally, here and there. But like, it's just like, it's like each environment gets one of us. It's all you deserve. I
wonder how well that holds true, but I
don't know. I'm just riffing.
Well, zodiac signs are a little bit like the runes in that they codify certain things, right? They encapsulate a certain energy, a certain specific resonance, right? And going back to that,
okay to vape on your
seeing the world. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's your choice. It's your body, man.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm derailing you already. It's like we're having a nice conversation back and forth, and then as soon as you hit record, it's like, who the fuck is this guy? Sorry.
What is it like seeing the world through this perspective of the runes, right? Tell me a little bit about how that looks for you. How does that color your perception?
It's a little bit like, if I use the analogy of Icelandic, okay? So Icelandic is as close to Old Norse as you can get, right? But when new technology appeared, they didn't just adopt the English words for them. They made up Icelandic words for them. So do you see what I mean? It's like, in Chinese, like computer is dian, which means electric brain. Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's kind of how the runes are. The runes, there's huge gaps in them. Like if you look at them, you go, how can you say that these 24 characters explain the entire universe and all of human existence? And you go, that's because the gestalt is constantly growing. So the build-up, so it's like a snail shell. Yeah. So you've got this hard, accepted thing that we know about, but the snail isn't stuck there. The snail is constantly growing. So the rim is the Bildung and the shell is the Gestalt. So if I say iPhone, where's the rune for iPhone? Well, what are you talking about? Are you talking about communication? Because we'll stick it under the rune for communication. Or do you see what I mean? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
It's like filing system, right? In the same way that somebody who's a Kabbalist, let's say a Kabbalist has got this tree of life, and they can take everything, astrology, tarot, everything, and stick it onto either one of the sticks, the 22 sticks, or the 10 balls. Yeah. And it's the same for the
Mm-hmm.
runes. So for me, that's what it is. It's like there are 24 drawers, and I can tell you without even looking what's in this drawer here. Yeah. And if I find a new thing, I go, where am I going to put that? I'll put it in this drawer. I might have to move it later, or it might end up being in a combination of drawers. But that's basically how runes work for me. Yeah, there you go.
I like that. I like the idea of it consistently growing and growing outward
Yeah.
within a spiral, the analogy of the snail shell, because I think what a lot of people struggle with is trying to find the right answer for a correspondence of something, right? So take any rune, Fehu, for existence, or
Okay.
for instance, somebody wants to know what that means. They're going to go look it up in a book. They're going to go look up something online, right? And they're looking for an answer that is 100% pure, right? Has origin that they can always verify, right? But that's not really how any of this works. It's consistently growing and evolving, and it's expanding outward in an exponential factor. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what system you're using, whether it's the Kabbalistic, the Sephiroth or the runes, just a level of myriad forms. It just keeps expanding outward. And so what's interesting about that is one rune having infinite amounts of expression. What do you do with that as a practitioner? How do you, where do you draw the line when this bucket starts intervening with the other one? Is that,
But
you
that's why
kind of
we
get
have
where I'm going with that?
we have things called bind runes. So a bind rune, and people will argue, right? So you've got your traditionalists who will argue that, okay, so within runology, we have letter only and esoteric, and they don't really
Mm-hmm.
get along. So the letters only will say, no, it's a written language. They're just letters like A, B, C, D, E. They don't mean anything. And the magic side go, you don't know. And so there's this constant argument. So bind runes are when you combine two runes to mitigate or amplify the power of each of them. Now, your letter only crew will say, no, that was only ever used as an abbreviation. And we only see it in this text and that text and this text. And we don't see it in any, and it's like, okay, all right, fair enough. So, shit, you did say something earlier and I was going to get back to, oh yeah, that's it. So with each rune, we have consensus. There is, at the bottom of the bucket, there is consensus. We can agree with reference to the Icelandic rune poem, the Norwegian rune poem, the Anglo-Saxon or Northumbrian rune poem, what these are. No, says the language bloke, those are just mnemonics. They're just mnemonics. That's not the power of those runes. Well, fuck you. I'm using it as the power of the runes, I use shufflemancy on fucking Spotify, get with the times, bro. No. And I'm sat here going, just whatever. So on the one hand, this is my two-handed philosophy, and I use it across the board. On the one hand, it's all true. And on the other hand, it's all bullshit. And the reality is somewhere here. Yeah. And so every time you take an idea or a practice or whatever, you're tossing it from hand to hand. And then in the end, you've got all of these concepts and you're juggling 12, and one day it might be bullshit and the next day it might be true. And it's just like, this is the life of an ADHD magician. It's like, what was I doing last week? I don't fucking know. What are we doing today? So there you go.
That's
The
where
only thing I can constantly
where
come
my
back to is the runes. Is the runes.
Well, they form a nice web, right? That they can catch you when you get into that space, right? You're like, oh, okay, I can always come back to this and then go back out. Like most of the magical journey is a series of processions and recessions, right? Everything that we do is like, how far out from the origin point can I go before I have to return? And that shows up in everything. The entire natural laws of the cosmos is how far out can I go before I have to come back and reintegrate and then go back out again. And each time you may get a little further. You might get a little bit more understanding, but you always got to come back. And having that safety net, right? Often the runes are referred to as a web, right? This is kind of like something that can catch you, right? I think that's nice that you have that, so you can basically refer to that.
Yeah. I mean, okay, the two directions that this is going off now, like, remember that the web is also the net, not just a safety net.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people see Odin as being the spider that sits in the middle of the web, and he feels whatever's happening in these directions, and like he will either pounce or he will, So, yes, I like the web analogy. Very much so.
I tend to think about it in other terms. If I was looking at it from more of a Greco-Egyptian way of looking at it, it's like the threads of a tapestry, right? Neath is weaving this thing, and each thread goes back to some form of a letter or a hieroglyph or some form of a symbol in some way that is something that we can attach. Nut is the sky, but Neath would be the weaver of those things. Yeah,
because in my tradition we have the Norne. Yeah, we have Urt Vedandi Skult. Yeah, that which was and that which is becoming. Yeah, and so they're the ones. So we have the same concept as that, and so. Yeah, the web of weird, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So
I like the.
Yeah, I love languages. That's one of my that's one of the things that I love most. I mean, I'm currently learning Norwegian because I was really bad at Old Norse, and so I tried Icelandic, and I was really bad at Icelandic, and I was like, okay, all right, look. I need to stop reading English language books on runology because they're just the same authors quoting the same translations. I need to get to the source text. That's why I want to get to Old Norse eventually. But there is so much more about Nordic culture, history, and runology written in Norwegian and Swedish. So that's why I'm learning Norwegian. But I learned Mandarin and Cantonese. I lived in Hong Kong. Like we were saying earlier about you were very influenced by Taoism and that. So like I've been like, okay, so yeah, like Taoism and Kung Fu, Tai Chi, all of that. That's how I grew up. Like I was doing that even before I was doing runes. So if we talk about my foundation, my foundation is Tai Chi Chuan. Oh, shit. Just Chinese do this. So yeah. So so the magic thing, that's one lens, and the Taoist Tai Chi thing, that's the other lens. So that's how they like. I don't know. I'm going to go off on a tangent now. So let's just read it back in again. Okay. Sorry.
Well, I think there's interesting crossover there, because one of the things that I see more often than not in the community online, right, is this hyperfixation on, like we were talking about before, keeping things in neat little buckets. We can't have all this crossover. That's somebody will either cry cultural appropriation, or they'll say that those two things don't mix. I tend to think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. There's a great deal of crossover. We are not, we're multidimensional beings. We have multifacets to our personas and what we need in this life to grow. And so that mixture, that foundation, I think that if you allow yourself, as you have, and as a great many of us have, to experience different modes, different ideas, different languages, then you start to see common threads. And those common threads tend to lead us back to unity, right? And it's something that is not only great for our mental, faculty to understand that there's a root to all of this, but it's also good for us in the mundane world, as if there is one, but in the mundane world and how we relate to people, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you've got this different idea and I've got this different idea. What should we focus on, the differences or the similarities? And I think that foundation that you're talking about of understanding different modes of thinking, because that's really what a language is, right? This is how I think about the world, and I'm trying to
Yeah, it's also
communicate the way I think about the world to you.
yeah. The one thing that I've learned through, because I've learned and forgotten so many languages over the years, and I like to get to the point where I don't have to translate something into English to understand it. I just understand it in the original language. And
Yeah.
the thing about languages is the language tells you how that culture sees themselves and other people. If they don't have a word for something, there's a reason for that. Or if their word for something is different, how is that nuanced? What is it? How do they see this thing differently to me? There's this thing about Greeks had no word for blue or whatever. Do you see what I mean? It's like wine dark sea, and like, it's all been debunked and everything. But that's kind of where it is. Like, yeah, that's why I love languages so much. So, and also I love because among other things, I'm a singer and a performance spoken word person. I love how language feels in my there's lang is
It's
tongue.
sound.
Yeah. So that yeah. So
Sound
yeah.
is really
Yeah, I was having
so.
this conversation on Threads the other day with Polish folk witch and Finnish folk witch that sound, anything that creates sound, like a drum, music, voice, anything is creating a vibration. And that vibration is a
Mhm.
change, right? That's the beginning of the change. It's like resonance. If you strike a tuning fork, and then you hold another tuning fork at the same frequency next to it, they will begin to vibrate. So you don't just have one tuning fork vibrating. They're not connected at all except by the vibration traveling through the air. So this is, was it Tesla who said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Yeah. And,
Mhm.
you know, yeah.
Well, it's true. When we're communicating with each other, most of what we're communicating, we tend to think, at least with the front part of our brain, it's just the letters, the symbols, the words that are coming across. But there's so much body language. And then there's just the vibration of the sound, the tone, the way that you're
Yeah.
speaking to someone speaks volumes more. So it's almost like, yeah, these things are encapsulating some of that energy and that vibration so that we can more quickly identify what you're talking about. But what's really communicating in this moment right now between you and me is that vibration. It's like the
Yeah.
that's speaking more to you on a complete cellular level than what the
Yeah.
words are just impacting this front part.
So yeah, there is that division between language and vibration. Like, oh man, this is huge. And like right now, okay, it's gone off in the web again. There are so many different ways there's so many avenues that we could go with this. The one that popped into my head was about Milton Erickson. I don't know if you've ever heard of Milton Erickson, the father of modern hypnotherapy, really. And he never put
Yeah.
people into a trance. He would just talk with them. And it was because I think it was polio. I think he had polio and he was confined to a wheelchair and he lost his virility, his vitality. And people would just go, he's just an old bloke who's telling me stories. Like, I came here with a fucking problem and he's just told me these stories. And then, but like weeks later, they're like, I don't have that problem anymore. So the point is that the what he was doing is he was speaking directly to their subconscious, and he was using symbolic
Mm-hmm.
language that the subconscious would understand, which on the surface just seems like some old bloke telling you a story. Okay, here's the best one, right? There was a guy who came to Erickson for grief, right? And he had been conditioned, like most Western men, to not cry. He couldn't cry. He couldn't cry,
Right.
and that was blocking him from releasing and feeling this grief. And Erickson picked up a pot plant, put it in the guy's lap, and that was the moment of shock. So, kids, that's the shift. And Erickson said, I haven't watered this one. Tears can be useful. Boom. That broke the thing. It allowed him to cry. And then they went on and they did the work, the processing the grief.
Right.
So anyway, let's pull it back. Pull it back. Sorry. This is
no, that's good.
I'm literally middle of the web. There's all these directions that we could go in. So, like, if you want to talk about, I don't know how long we've got. If you want to talk about stuff, pull me back. Just.
Hey, you know what? There are no accidents or coincidences in my worldview. Things happen because that's what needs to happen at that time. For me,
so then,
that's how I tend to operate in the world.
Synchronicity, the acausal connecting principle. It's like, Jesus, we can do a whole fucking thing about the history of psychology and psychotherapy. It's like my mom is she's old, and she's a very highly educated, qualified, and experienced psychotherapist. So I've deep dived all of this stuff with her. So, yeah. Right.
Well,
what are we talking about?
It all comes, some stuff. I think what it all comes back to for me generally is everything is story, all of it. Everything for us as a species is story. It's how we communicate. It's how we think. It's everything. It's what we consume. It's the nature of what the human experience is. And so what I want to ask is, how do the runes impact your story? What story do they have to tell you? Where's the crossover there?
With runes are right. Runes are my story. At the end of the day, when, like I said, this is how I interpret. If I need to speak about something metaphorically, I will say, like the these the consensus that I was saying. So Fehu, whatever you want to call it, Fee means money. Well, no, it doesn't. It means cow. Yeah, because back then cows were money. Yeah,
cow was money.
Yeah, right. That's what it means literally. But so rings have a shape, a sound, and a meaning. So they're like hieroglyphs. They're like Hebrew. They're kind of pictographic. They're kind of ideographic. They're like, but each of them is a huge cognitive map, a huge conceptual map. And so when my story would not exist without runes, right? And so back in 1996, when I came back from Hong Kong, I didn't kill myself. In this reality, I'm still alive because I didn't let gravity and concrete finish it for me. Yeah. And it was terrible. It was awful. It was fucking horrible. And I just, I wish I could tell that guy, what I have done, but that's another story. That things really do get so much worse and then better and then worse and then better. Bipolar. And I got my diagnosis when I was 17. And so, you know what you're saying about stories? Yeah. Okay. So I came back, and in 1996, during a fire sitting ritual, I was granted 3 gifts. One was a glimpse of Brisingamen, or Brising, Freya's necklace. The other was a charm that I can't tell anyone about, And the third was this method of using the runes. Yeah. And so I waited to see if I searched to see if anybody had published this method. I asked people if they'd ever heard of this method, and nobody had heard of it. Yeah. So I tested and evaluated this method for 24 years. And then eventually I published it in 2020. So that is, if we're going to talk about what is the purpose of my character, my card, my Magic the Gathering on the table, that's it. My purpose was to bring this into the world, and nobody else has done it. So that's how I can be sure. I can be sure because, yeah, so, and it's a way of using the runes. And so, like, my story is the story of this method of using the runes. And it's been,
Gotcha.
So
that's your sacred song.
Yeah. And so there you go. And so I have been using the runes daily and testing this thing for, okay, what is it? Like, that was 2020. So 28 years, nearly 30 years now. So there is not a day that goes by that I don't see the world through the runes, that I don't. Yeah, there you go. So when I say it's my primary operating system, that's what I mean. My world is built of runes. Yeah. When Neo's code is going down the screen, it's Futhark runes for me.
Do you use the Elder? Is it just the standard 24 for you? Do you study any of the other variants?
There's a reason why. It is okay. So my method is for the 24 rune set, the Elder Futhark, right? So I was using runes for about 10 years before I felt worthy of getting them tattooed onto me, right? So once this ink was on me, that's it, right? I am dedicated to this rune. So all other rune sets, I see the same way that I go, like, oh, the Romans syncretized that. Like, the Romans go, oh, you've got to. Did we say that before or after? So my syncretic thing is, I interpret. So I know all of the rune sets, but I know them in relation to where they are compared to the Elder Futhark. And last year,
so the Elder's your anchor.
Yeah, exactly. This is my speciality. This is my language. This is my, and it relates to a language that no longer exists, Proto-Germanic, right? We don't have, it's a reconstructed language because we don't have enough examples of it to reconstruct. We don't know how it was pronounced. We don't know the grammar. All we have is one basic guess of how it worked. So, and when people, and like, there are traditionalists who go, runes were never used like that. No, that's true. But quartz and gold were never used like we use them in an iPhone. So, what are you saying? Like, I'm taking an old technology and finding a new use for it. So really, if it's working for me, and that's the thing, I'm quite scientific about things. I need things to be reproducible, replicable, reliable, right? I'm going to eliminate confirmation bias and placebo effect, right? I want stuff and this is why I tested it for 24 years, because I need to know that this works. And I've had reports back from other people going, fuck, this works. And I'm like, yeah, it does, doesn't it? So, but that's the point. I didn't publish it until I was absolutely certain that I wasn't leading people up the garden. Yeah. So, yeah.
Right.
So when you very flatteringly called me a rune master, I'm in the faculty of runes in an office down the hall called Elder Futhark. Yeah. And I know all of the other people. I know all of the younger Futhark and the Northumbrian and we will not mention the far right ones, because there was a system which unfortunately is gaining traction again now, which is worrying. But no, I know all of these, and I know the languages that they use, and I know how they're used, but I am still looking at them through the Elder Futhark. So there you go.
Okay.
That's
in your praxis with the runes. How much of it is inner exploration and how much of it is practical application for manifestation in the world, or or something of circumstance or happening that you want to have? What's that process like for you? Say,
okay. You see, I'm right. I am bound slightly because the people I published because I want to tell you my method, right? Because it's fucking amazing. It's awesome. And nobody else has ever said it. But I published it 4 years ago and in a zine. Yeah. And the zine has been reprinted and reprinted and reprinted. And it's Treadwells and Watkins and various covens around the world. But they want to adapt it. The publisher has come back to me literally last week and said, would you expand on this for a
nice,
book? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I will.
awesome.
So I don't want to steal their thunder by going,
Right.
kaboom, this is how the method works for you here now. I will come back once the book is published and do a special on it.
Of course.
So using this method, I use this method every day. I have done for 30 years, just about. And if I am stuck in traffic, I'll use it. If I if I need something to happen or not happen, I use runes. Yeah, it's like breathing for me, right? If I've got a wasp on my arm, I blow it away, right? For me, the wasp is the thing that I don't want to happen. I don't want to kill this wasp, but I don't want it on me. Yeah. And that is me using the runes. So if I'm stuck in traffic, I use this method, I find my way out. Do you see it? It's the engineering of coincidence. Yeah. So I am using runes all the time to engineer. My patroness is called Unfair Advantage. That's one of her names. Her actual name is unknown to me, because that would be an unfair advantage. No one knows her actual name, but the name that she has told me is Unfair Advantage, and that's what she is. And some runes are an unfair advantage. Yeah, it's sleight of hand. I mean, like I've been doing sleight of hand longer than I've been, even before runes, even before Taoism, even before that, I was doing sleight of hand. So, it's just these are the blocks that make up me. Yeah. There you go. That's how I use runes. So I do use runes for divination, but a lot less than most people would think. Mostly I use runes for magic. I make things happen or not happen. I can speed things up or slow them down. Yeah. By using
they're your reality UI. They're your UX UI.
Just like I was saying, it's like if I need I need to collate line of code, boom, there we go. It's running on the server now. Does anybody else need it? Okay, fine.
So does that process run through you first and then filter out into the world outside of you? So is it a microcosmic that affects the macrocosmic, or is it the macrocosmic affecting the microcosmic, or a little of both?
Let's talk about the web again, right? So I tug on the strands. Yeah. That's what I do. So it exists outside. I try, like, this is my Taoism again. I try to wu wei. I try to act without forcing. I try not to use magic.
Influence over force.
I try to just live my life without forcing, acting without forcing, right? Because my experience of if you take the web and you pull here, you're going to create a knot here. And it might not affect me, it might not impact me, but it might impact somebody else, right? And it's still me. And I said this earlier this week. Any act of magic which removes another's free will, and that could be a love spell, that's baneful, right? That's why a lot of these relationships that come through love spells end up in disaster. Yeah, because that person was unfairly influenced to be in this relationship. And
unfair advantage.
Unfair advantage. Like, let's not even get into that. Oh, you've frozen, buddy.
You there?
You froze for about 5 seconds.
I noticed. Yeah, so there's a lot to that, right? There is where I would position it. I've been thinking about this a lot as I've been releasing more and more content. What is magic? We have so many definitions of what magic is coming from all different traditions, but on a more interpersonal level, there's a lot of steps to getting to where you're talking about, right? With the manipulation of the web. First and foremost, everything is an act of intent and will, and you have to have mastery of self, some sort of self-control before you can start tugging on this stuff with any kind of alacrity, right? And
I was going to say, mastery of form is mastery of self. So I've been a martial artist. It came in between. So my Taoist and Tai Chi phase, I've been a martial artist since I was single digits young. So sleight of hand, martial arts. And so mastery of form is mastery of self. It's not there to destroy somebody else. It's there to... and I treat magic like martial arts, right? So I could punch everybody in the face to get my own way. I could cast spells, yeah? But fuck that. I don't do that, It's not that I can't, it's that I choose not to. Because, sorry, back to what you were saying. Magic martial arts, same thing.
It is. It's mastery of the mind and mastery of...
W will, yeah? It's magic with a K is about this, me being the best version of me that I can be, to be the thing that I was created to be, the best possible version of that. And magic is one path to that. Spirituality, martial arts, they can all be bad. They can all have rotten roots. They can, and one bad apple can spoil a whole barrel. But that's the crossover for me. All of these philosophies and pursuits are about refining the dross, the ore into the metal, into the iron, and then taking that iron and forging it into the blade of discernment. So there you go.
See, you read my mind where I was going with this. It does start with that little will, your tiny W, and then it goes to your big W. But you don't find that first. I think first you have to find the idea within your own mind that this way that I'm living currently is not the way that I want to anymore. I don't want to do this programmed method of autopilot that I'm on, where my life is happening to me and where I have a perspective that life is happening to me unfairly, right? You have to get over that. Realize that this mode of thinking that I'm in is overpowering me and I feel powerless, right?
Yeah.
From there, then the next stage is, how do I transmute all of this dross that I have in here, all this bad programming, all this bad code? And that's an internal exploration before you ever get to pulling on those strings, right? Before you ever get to plucking anything. Because if you do that work first, when you get to the point where you're plucking strings, where you're saying, you know what, I want this circumstance, you may look at that and go, you know what, I may have once thought with my little W that that's the experience that I want. But now that I'm aligned with my big W, that's not what I want. That's not what and it's not even about desire anymore. It's like, that doesn't align with my purpose and where I'm going in this life.
Yeah,
and
that's not me anymore.
That by the time you even get to plucking strings, you're like, do I even need to?
It's interesting.
Do I even need to?
Strings, because that goes back to the vibration thing that we were talking about. And so Orpheus and his lyre and the skalds and their poetry, it's like, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And so plucking so you move,
but
from...
that also
go ahead. I was going to wax point. You move from
please do
happen to playing the music to because like instead of it's about discord and harmony. Yeah. It's like is your we're going back to the Buddha again, you know, like if you tighten the string too tight, it'll snap. If you leave it too slack, it won't play. This is the discipline. We tighten it and we tune it, and then you okay, dude? Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Anyway.
No, you're good. I've got construction happening on my street outside my recording studio, which is in my garage because,
Okay.
I'm humble like that. But so it's that tension, right? You have to find that sweet spot. And I was talking about that with Ike Baker the other day. There's a musical reference to that, right? That's what a magician is, a root master, anything. It's just finding that sweet musical spot that goes ding, and that's the experience that I want, right? And I'm curious.
Let me show you something, okay? All right. So this is a jeweler's store, right? I don't know if you can see that. It's got a blade which is as thin as a hair, right? So this is going to be difficult to do. I'll try and do it in front of you, okay? So I leave it undone, but when I want to use it, I put it in. You hear?
Mm-hmm.
In the jewelry trade, we call that the sound of success.
Okay.
You can hear that as it gets lower and lower.
Yep.
The tension.
Scaling down.
Yeah. So yeah, the tool will not work without the tension being correct. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same with the person, right?
Yeah.
That this doesn't function without the appropriate tension. And that tension is really how you perceive yourself as a individual unit and also a part of that unity. Where's the tension between those? And that's where you find your musical note. It's that tension between the W's. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
I am curious how that analogy works in metalwork. And I want to get into talking about your metalwork here.
Yeah, sure.
How does it, there's something poetic in it. So you probably have as a musical artist and as a metalworker, there's got to be some crossover there. So wax poetically on metalsmithing.
Metal. Metal. So like for me, I'm primarily a Norseman, yeah? But the Norse traveled widely. Yeah, they went everywhere. Up the Silk Road, they went into they went everywhere, literally everywhere. They came all the way over to Nova Scotia. Yeah, they were widely traveled. What the fuck was I saying? Oh yeah. So I they learn things. It is like in terms of Odin, right? Odin is constantly thirsty for knowledge. So when you say about this bucket and keeping the bucket pure, right? Odin doesn't want just one bucket. He wants all the buckets. He wants Odin is a code nerd. Odin is a book reader. Odin is a gamer. It's like if there is something that exists, he wants to know about it because it might be an unfair advantage. And so in working as a metalsmith for the occult community, and that's what's difficult with this because everything that I do is confidential. And it makes it very difficult because I don't keep photographs of the things that I make. And all of my communication with practitioners is private. So there is nothing to show. Like I've got an Etsy and you can go and buy some charms or whatever. But the real meat of what I do is secret. It's completely secret. But I work with practitioners. I create items, magical jewels and ritual tools for people across traditions. So I have to be able to sprechen Sie Deutsch, parle français, do you see what I mean? I have to be able to speak their language. I have to be able to understand their language. So here's something that I'm working. I made one of these for a person called Sammy, she's Temple of Heresy, if you look her up. Right, so this is a Jovian offering dish. So the
Nice.
technique here. So basically, what I'm saying
Beautiful.
is I can speak Greek. I can understand the planets from the Hellenistic. It's the Hellen. I can have that app. I can have that plugin running in my head, so that when I'm creating something like this one is going to be a Deipnon for Hecate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
this one is for Jupiter, right? So yeah. So this is tin. So the planetary days. So if I look at Western Hermetic magic, right? Western Hermetic magic is based on these four elements, right? Which are earth, fire, air, water. Okay, four directions. Alchemy, astrology, just everything Western is based on that Greek concept and
Mm-hmm.
planetary hours, planetary days, astrology. Each planet has a metal. So yeah, okay, I can work with that. You want something to charm the moon with? Sure, I'll give you something in silver. Oh, it's solar? It'll be in gold. If you want to talk to Jupiter, tin, Mars,
Mm-hmm.
iron, right? Mercury, it's a little bit more difficult, but I can make an amalgam with silver. It's like that's my metallurgy, right? But then you shift east, their elements, our elements in the east, doesn't contain air. Air is just air is like the fish in water, right? Air is chi. So we have earth, fire, water, wood, and metal. Yeah. So number one, you've got
Mm-hmm.
5 elements, not 4 elements. And number two, there's wood and metal. So what okay, so wood I would give to the elves, and metal I would give to the dwarves. So okay, so these things are starting to work together. Um so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like so that's what I mean. And like I found chaos magic at around about the turn of the century, which is when it was kind of fashionable. Um And the big thing for me about chaos with a K is that it's the Greek term of chaos, the undifferentiated, undivided source. And it's like the Tao, chaos. There is this undifferentiated source, and then the one thing becomes the two things, and then the two things give birth to the 1,000 things, right? This once again, it's fingers
Yep.
pointing to the
Mm-hmm.
moon, right? And so what the chaos stream did for me was the ability to remove dogma and to be scientific and go, how does this work? Actually, it doesn't actually matter how it works. How do I get it to work? How can I repeatedly get
Mm-hmm.
results? And so things like sigil magic is like chaos magic, sigil magic. They go together. But sigils have pause. I moved the book. Yeah, so I've got a book of Solomon's seals here. So if I need, so it's there you go. So you see Solomon's seal there? That's I don't know what seal that is. You see this one here?
Got a few on my arm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you
this
get the.
is what happened in Iceland, or this is what happened in Iceland when this turned up. Yeah. So that's
Are you?
where I
Oh, so
am.
you think they're this? You think the Seals of Solomon influenced the?
Yeah, without doubt. Like people. Well, okay, so once again, we've got the purists over here arguing, "Yeah, you've got to think this is a tattoo. They don't belong to the Vikings. They didn't come around until the 1800s. So, well, yeah. And so I never said it was a Viking tattoo. I never said that these were
Mm-hmm.
Viking. These are, it's like the earliest example of Elder Futhark we've got is 100 AD. The Viking era wasn't until the late Iron Age. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so what? So yeah, so for me, as a metalsmith, it's important to be able to understand and speak other people's paradigms, and then use, I'd say, okay, so we've got the 4 elements of Western Hermeticism, Hellenistic. Then we've got the 5 elements of Eastern Taoism, Chinese astrology. Then we've got, like, some people say that the Nordic elements are fire, ice, the primal opposites, Ginunga Gap versus Muspelheim, Aim. Then the other 2 would be yeast, because yeast is living and expands, and then venom, because venom kills and digests. And it's like there are different elements, and then we pull out even more, and we get the periodic table of elements.
Plants, fungi.
Yeah, well, there you go. So it's elementary, dear Watson. So so where I am is as scientific well, I need to understand the language of science to understand how metals work. But I'm also coming at it from the other end, which is I need to understand, like, bronze, okay? Bronze, you take copper, which is really soft, and you take tin, which is really soft. But when you melt them together, they alloy. It creates this new substance, which is called bronze. Bronze is hard. You take one soft metal and another soft metal, and you add them together, and now you've got a blade. All of a sudden, you've got grease. Like with their burnished shields and their bronze swords, and you've got, like, it's what? And it's like you take a stone, yeah, like, let's say malachite, and you put it in a fire, and you get a metal out of it. It's like, what? How is this? So it's crazy, and it's a constant adventure as well. That's why I love it so much, is that every time I feel like I'm stagnating, there'll be something else to do. There'll be something new. Something will happen, or I'll get a message from someone, or I'll get a job. And, like, it's weird because I interpret things scientifically, rationally, logically, and batshit insane magically all the time, right? So, and because I have bipolar disorder, I also have ADHD. So I am very aware of my mental health, right? I know what mania looks like. I know what mania feels like. So because having had that experience, I'm able to go, this isn't mania, right? This isn't insanity. This is actually real. And so, but you have to, I don't know. There's this thing in blacksmithing called black heat, right? So that's why we work, when we work in the forge is not lit. There's no light in the forge. I don't use power tools. I don't use a power fan. I use just muscle and those are the other, the forge, earth, coal, air, the fan, fire, the fire, and then water, the quench. It's elemental. Everything is the combination and the manipulation of elements. So, shit, I lost my thread. The forge. When you're in the forge and you heat the iron or the steel, it's glowing. It's glowing bright orange. But then as soon as you move out into daylight, that glow is gone, right? Because the sun is brighter than the glow. And then that's what we call black heat. And I have done this before. And believe me, I've not just done it once, right? Where there's a piece of black hot metal, which is still, if I take it inside, glowing. But if it's outdoors, and people will pick it up and touch it. So, it's just, and that's what I mean. Like, I know, because I've had my fingers burned before. My experience of mental health has allowed me to go, okay, no, sorry, you can't see that. I'm just like,
so they're intrinsically linked, your mental health and the act of forge.
Yeah, I mean, like, what I meant was,
Well,
what we do, you're a
one
forge.
informs the other.
When you bring a piece of metal out of the fire, you put it on the anvil to cool, and the anvil will suck the heat out of it. But you put an X on it in trouble, and that tells anybody else who's walking by, don't touch this. Yeah. So but there are I don't quite know where this is going. It's just like how
No,
it
I think it's
began.
interesting. I think it's
Began was when people say it's just right. And this is the thing, because I've had mental health issues since I was 17, since I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at 17. It was only 2 years ago, right? I'm 52. And it was only 2 years ago that I met a psychotherapist other than my mother, who did not see belief in magic as a symbol of mental illness, right? That's how bad it is. Like, if you say that you talk to spirits, that's schizophrenia. It's like, I've been put on schizophrenic meds for saying, and I said, look, I'm a rational human being. I need to test this to see if it's true or not. And the psychiatrist said, I've listened to you for an hour and not one thing that you've said is rational. And I'm like, well, fuck that. And I was put onto, and like, it's a fucking concrete helmet, mate. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. There are no highs and there are no lows. It's like living through a letterbox, right? And it's horrible. It's really horrible. So I have been through all of that and come out the other side. So that's how I know that when I talk about these things, they are real. They are not just subjectively real. It's not just me. These things that's why I'm an animist. Yeah, because I know without that, like when my patroness came and got me, and she came and got me. I didn't petition her. She just, boom, came and got me. And the way that she revealed herself to me, if I hadn't already been through being insane, it would have, it's like Call of Cthulhu type. It would have shredded my sanity. But because I had already been through, I had another patroness before that, who was much more gentle with me. And that's when I got used to spirit communication and having this gentle tap on the shoulder or having this little voice in the back, and just a little voice, and you can ignore it. But every time I ignored it, I'd wish I hadn't, And it's like people, that's just that's just pattern recognition. It's like, what? Yeah. So I had a gentle introduction for about 20 years with Hulda, who was my patroness. Hulda is a Norse deity, the goddess who everything that Odin has, like the wild hunt and the weaving of fate and runes, like runes. Okay, they're Odin's bag, right? He hung on the tree to get the runes, right? We'll let him have that. And everything else belonged to Hulda before Odin even existed. Yeah. So, and Hulda was my mentor, my patroness for a long period of time, breaking me in gently, put it that way. So I could get used to accepting that spirits exist, accepting that magic is real, accepting that I can know things that I'm not supposed to know. There's no way of me knowing them, and then I can confirm that that's real. And then my current patroness, Unfair Advantage, she just fucking kicked the door in one day and was like, "Are you fucking ready yet?" And I'm like, "Holy shit, is this real?" "Yes, it's fucking real." Okay. And I've been with you. I've been waiting for you. She showed me an event that happened like a decade earlier on the Isle of Skye. And I was like, "Oh, fuck, that crazy thing." And she was like, "Yeah, but not in words. I'm Rick and Mortying this. I'm giving them characters. It's like, it's like,
So that's interesting.
Okay.
So in that method of communication with you, there's a couple of interesting things you said there, and I think the people who say it's just this. Nothing in the world is just this, right? Everything's far more nuanced than that. And it's always a mixture, some sort of mixture of this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, our intuition does tell us things. Yes, we are good at pattern recognition, but there's something else afoot. It can't just be those two things. Experience dictates that. Anybody with a rational mind says there's something else going on here. And that goes back to the idea of you being insane, right? I think anybody, and this is my own personal view, who doesn't recognize that they've been insane pretty much their entire life, at least in this modern world, is selling themselves something. There's a level of insanity that we all go through. And one of the things that magic does for us in general, the understanding of that tension between the W's, as we were talking about, that's your sanity. That's your return to sanity, because I think what's insane is living a life where everybody else dictates what your fucking experience is. That's insane to me. That's insanity. So mental health and all that aside, I think that's a real issue, is that we have a whole bunch of people walking around that don't have any tension between their W's and somebody else is pulling the strings for them more often than not. That's insane to me, living in a powerless state. Finding your purpose, finding your sacred song, finding that tension for yourself, that's a return to sanity, right? And it's interesting. Once you have that sanity, you can hear. Yes. Well, and I don't think it's like some big like evil cabal either or anything like that. It's just the nature of the way society has gone, generation after generation after generation, telling us this, that, and the other thing. It starts back with scientific positivism and those things, but it's all of that just compounding on itself, and then we slowly forget that once upon a time, people saw the world through a magical lens, not a mundane lens, not a dead matter lens. Everything was alive and speaking to you.
Dead matter. It's like, like science seems to forget that it's a 300-year bubble. That prior to that and after that, the world was magical. Yeah, but each generation, every generation throws a hero up the pop charts. It's each generation will rebel against what came before, and then all right, I'm Gen X, right? And we hated everything that our parents did, right? We did our own shit. We were new. We would and then you get the next generation who goes, oh my God, fucking boomer. Like what? So I'm a boomer. My dad was a boomer. Don't call me a boomer. And it's like, and then you get down to Gen Z, and he goes, hey, have you guys heard of sets? And it's like, it's just, okay. So
no, the way tell me about them.
Okay, right. Okay, there's this music from the 1900s. So no, anyway, so if we put it this way, so if we look at the lap of Saturn, so Saturn takes about 30 years, 29.5 years. Which is about the length of a generation in genealogical terms. So let's look at the 60s. So we had the 60s, we had free love, acid, consciousness expansion, human potential. We had
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, we had all of this incredible stuff. Boom, and then everything clamps down on that. And then, but 30 years later in the 90s, we had the rave generation, MDMA, and boom, and like gender nonconformity, and it's like these things have always been there, but it's like how widespread they are. And then there's it closes down again, and then in the 2020s, we're like, it's just, I can see this sine wave with a period of 30 years that is going through from the 60s through the 90s into the 2020s, and the next generation is going to rebel against this, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing like the totalitarian stuff is kicking in. I'm not going to say
that's
the
cycle. That's repeating the last century. If you look closely, just historically, it's just a repetition. And if you go back and look at 1900s through the 1800s, the same cycles. It's the same cycles. And this happens again, going back to what I was talking about, is people not realizing their agency, people running
Yeah.
on bad programming. And if you don't have agency, you're going to be victim to what the programming of society is at that time. And it's not to say even that society is bad and it's going to get you. It's just people not running around, or basically people running around, giant toddlers running around without their own agency. They're going, I'm operating on what this person said and what this person said. It's almost as though they're like corporate sponsors. When somebody speaks, some other voice comes out. Like I speak, hey, that was so and so, and not you. Like you can tell when somebody's speaking truth from their heart,
But
from
this goes
them
back to
themselves.
it's like it's hypnosis. It's blipwords. It is there. It's like the parroting of it's like
Uh huh.
oh
It's a natural thing.
1984.
It's a natural thing that people do.
Yeah, but you're right about agency. I mean, like for me, the reason why I don't call myself a religious person is because religion usually, and that's why I don't identify as asatru or heathen, or pagan even, because those are religions, and religions have priesthoods, and the priesthood acts as an intercessor between the individual and their source, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they're there for, right? And so I'm not interested in that. I'm like, I want the direct experience of
You're a mystic. You're a mystic.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, that's just, they all have their place, right? Not everybody gets to go down this path. That's another thing that I think gets
I
talked
understand that
about
I am
often is
extremely privileged.
that
Yes.
magic isn't for everyone either. Like it's just simply not. This path that most people in magic are on is not something that most people can even fathom doing. I'm going to walk myself through fucking hell to get to a point where I have agency again. No thanks. I'll just keep running the same bad program over and over again. Most people just don't want to go there, and that's okay too. It's available to you if you want to go do it, but most people are not going to choose to do that.
Hey, you're back. No, yeah. Whatever it was that you were saying, the powers that be did not want to release that information quite yet. So no, I agree with you. It's like not everybody, like it is, but that's exactly what you're talking about. It's magic is the forging process from ore to sword. Yeah, you dig. So like the ore is in the earth. The
Mm-hmm.
ore was created billions of years ago. Yeah, it's like, and it's the same thing. It's like we go into purgatory, we go into the fire, we go through the chemical process. It is alchemy. I mean, all of these metaphors are correct. Not any single one of them is the be all and end all. And that's why I'm such a, I don't know, what's the word, pluralist it's like I can shift, I can switch between, like, I could drop into French in the middle of a conversation. Yeah, it's just, that's you need. You need to, I don't know, you need to be able to, if you look at something from just one angle, like it's like if we look at a cylinder, yeah, if we have this cylinder and I show it to you this way, you're going to see a square, yeah, and then I turn it this way, see a circle, right? And so if I hold it like this and I say this is a solid object, you go cube. No, I hold it this way and I say this is a solid object, you go sphere. No, yeah. Do you see what I mean? You need to be able to see things from different angles to understand their true nature. And sometimes, most of the time, each philosophy, each praxis only looks at something from a certain angle. Yeah. It's like, I'm the interest, like, this thing popped into my head like months ago, is that telescope will show you the far away. Yeah. A microscope will show you the very small. But you can't just turn a telescope around to make a microscope. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the very big and very distant, that's relativity, special relativity. The very small and very here, that's quantum mechanics. And one hand, the other hand, we have yet to, you know, like Einstein hated spooky action at a distance. And it's just, but that's the thing, you know, it's, we don't have a theory of everything yet, but we can still
No,
innovate.
you can still
We can still
operate.
make new things. Yeah. Anyway,
All right.
that's
So we're coming up on 1 hour 15. I want to talk about the dwarves. What's that relationship like?
okay. Okay. So for me, this is right. So I was prepared for talking with non-human, non-corporeal beings by my original patroness Holder, right? And so it was the Dwergar, the dwarves. When I became a jeweler, they offered me assistance, right? So I came to metalsmithing through silver, and as a jeweler, and then I added metals to that, and then eventually I now work with all metals. So they are my actual patrons, and you said something earlier before we
Is
started
that
the
a
show.
tutelary relationship?
It's both. It's like so when people say I work with such and such a deity, yeah, I work with them, but I also work for them. So my job as a smith who works with them and for them is to promote them and because they are really secretive and they are very difficult to understand fully. Um, and it's another thing. It's another one of these insane things. Like you have to accept that you are talking with non-physical, but incredibly ancient and incredibly wise. They're not. I mean, like Tolkien has very much influenced how we see them. Yeah. But I mean, it was interesting in Brian Bates, The Way of Weird. Brian Bates meets a dwarf, but he's a dwarf from Giant Land. So this dwarf is actually bigger than the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
We see this in, I can't remember, one of the Thor movies where he goes and he meets the dwarf who makes him the new weapon. And that dwarf is giant.
Peter Dinklage.
Right? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so that's, so, but they will appear to you however your mind will comprehend them. Yeah, but usually they don't appear in person. They put images, concepts, and also they sort of like nudge you when you're working. So you have to listen very carefully. So I offer them dark pipe tobacco because I found that they like dark pipe tobacco. I offer them whiskey, Islay whiskey, because it's smoky. They like smoky stuff. And
Well,
this is the thing. It's
Fires
like
of the Forge.
Yeah. And right, okay, there we go. There is a concrete fucking example of Dwergar magic, right? When I was doing my blacksmith qualification, I had one of those black heat moments. So what happened was I was holding a piece of steel in tongs and it pivoted in the tongs and it hit me on the back of the arm, right? So literally it was like branded, right? And it was pain. It was such fucking huge pain, right? And I asked that because I knew that if I stopped then, that was it. I'd failed my qualification, right? I would have to go back through and I'd have to wait until the next time it came around. And I asked them for healing in that moment and the pain stopped. And I don't mean like I burnt all the nerves away. I mean, the pain stopped in that moment for long enough for me to finish what I was doing, create my piece and submit it. And then I've got photographs somewhere of the injury, right? And I've had, and that, and like I said, it's not the only time I have been granted immediate, because they don't get burnt. They don't, like, this is crazy. They are not like humans at all. Um, they are the personification of the deep earth. They are minerals and metals. They are treasure, right? And they are the spirit of treasure. They create treasure. So when we talk about, we were talking earlier and you said they are minor characters in Norse mythology. Fuck are they? Nothing happens in
Yeah,
Norse mythology.
in popular ideology, right?
Right.
I
Like
don't view them that
everything,
way, but yeah.
all of the treasures, like Mjolnir, Gungnir, Bursty, Sif's hair, everything. Like even the mead of inspiration, right, was made by dwarves. The dwarves way more than the elves. The elves are like way off there in Alfheim, Heim, whatever you want to call it, Alfheim. They don't really interact with humans at all. Or I mean, whereas the Dwergar, the dwarves, do, and they, in the same. I mean, like, I'm only just really learning about African traditional religions and the African diaspora traditions. So you have, and also I'm only just really learning about Hellenistic stuff. So you've got Hephaestus from the Greeks,
Mm-hmm.
you've got Ogun, the Orisha. Um, these are sacred smiths, right? These are, and so Ogun is not just a blacksmith. Everything from blacksmithing to iPhones to technology. It's just, and it's the same with the. Are you still there? You've frozen. Doesn't matter. I'm going to say this now. So, um, technology, technology as we know it, is Duergar magic. So it is minerals, quartz, and precious metals, and rare earth metals. These are things that have come from the earth and then arranged in intricate ways and animated with tame lightning and given to humans. And these, and like, we have telepathy, we have clairvoyance, we can see what's happening on the other side of the world. We have access in our hands to a computer that is more powerful than the one that put people into space. Yeah, it's,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's like, so that's their province. Their province is metals, minerals, magic. And and that's, so I'm not saying that you don't have this thing in other traditions. It's just, that's why. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't call myself a sacred smith. I mean, I didn't take that name. I was called a sacred smith by another sacred smith. I It's really dated now. I told you about it. I submitted an essay for a book called The Durga
Mm-hmm.
Book, which was the first ever book about crafters who work with the Durga and their experiences. And they're just
Mm-hmm.
as varied as you would expect. But yeah, so there you go. That's why for me, the Durga are I mean, I've got, that's why they're a
Right.
major part. Every
It's
time, so for me, so part of my ritual of creation, right? So okay, this is my tobacco pipe. Yeah, this is my Dwergar pipe. If I want to commune with the Dwergar, if I'm trying to solve a problem, if I'm trying to figure something out, I'll go and sit outside, usually in nature, and I'll smoke this pipe. Not this pipe. This pipe I'll fuck around on the internet or, flick through. Yeah. This pipe is me communing with them. And the smoke, I draw their presence through the smoke into my body. So when I begin a ritual, I will make an offering of tobacco to them. I'm sober now. I've been sober 6 years, but I still buy high quality whiskey for them. And so I will make my offerings to them. It's not to placate them, it's to thank them in advance. It's like I'm not buying anything from them. I am bestowing my gratitude to them. And so this is kind of how my spirit work, my animistic thing. You can't really work with the Dwargar without being an animist. You have to believe in, as Yoda says, that rock, that tree. You have to believe that there is this force. And the point is, for me, I don't need to believe. I don't have faith, because faith to me implies belief in the face of doubt. There is no doubt for me. I know these things are true because I have repeatedly found the same thing will happen. If I perform these actions in this order, I will get this result. Just like if I if I heat a piece of metal, it'll become soft. It is literally that. It's the same. So yeah, that's my association with the Dwargar.
Do they correlate to the metals, like by name? Like, do you work with a specific one when you're working with gold? Do you work with a specific one?
No, I would say that that's far more with the planets. The if I want
to work on a hierarchy, yeah.
Like if I'm doing something that involves copper, I will shift I would possibly shift to more Hellenistic view. If I need it's usually, gotcha. I think we're putting the cart before the horse there. It's like in the same way that if I want to get the influence of Venus, then I'll use copper. It's rather than copper is Venus. No, copper's also Babylon. Copper's also this, that, the other. Yeah. Copper's half of. Do you see what I mean? It's like there's an interesting thing that there's one spirit. I can't really talk about this, unfortunately. There's one spirit that's all right. The spirit of a deposit of rare earth metals in Scandinavia. I can't say where. And it was another spirit worker who basically got a tap on the shoulder, and it's like, this guy's not listening. Could you please get in touch with this guy and tell him this? And then described what he looked like and described his symbols. And I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah, okay. And I've never seen this being. I talk to it now because I understand that it's there, that it's interested in me, and that it, and like, that's the thing. Like, I've had other spirit workers who have, and this is going back to the sleight of hand thing, right? The reason why I love sleight of hand and magic is because I know how to fake it. And so in the same way that I know cold reading and false mediums and all of this kind of bullshit, yeah, through my interest in performance magic and close-up magic, right, I can convince you that I've done something that's impossible, right? When I really know it's just simple sleight of hand. But then for somebody to say something to me that there is absolutely, and like, tell me something about me, tell me a secret that only I know, without having looked it up on the internet, there is no way that they could know this thing. And yet they use this particular word and say, this being wants me to talk to you. And they're calling themselves, I don't want to use this word. It's a rude word. And I'm like, just say the word. They say that you'll know them as, and they say the word. And I go, how the hell can you know that? And so it's moments like this when you go, there is so much more. There is so much more than our limited.
It's never just, right?
Yeah.
It's never just.
Yeah.
There's always more. And that's, I think, you said something interesting there too about the difference between knowledge and faith. And I think that's in our world, knowledge has now taken preference, especially in society, the way that we function as rational human beings. Knowledge has more value than faith at this point as a societal thing. And I think we separate them as polar opposites. I think that they're much more intrinsically linked than that even. There's only so much I can know as this being, as this particular corporeal being. And even in working with spirits, communing with them, there's what I know of them, but there's so much more that I can't know about them, or maybe never will, based on the nature of our relationship or the nature of my experience or where I'm going to go, so on and so forth. But I do have to have, beyond that knowledge that I know, a certain level of faith or belief that there's something else beyond them, right?
Yeah.
That they know what they are. They know what they're doing. There is some faith associated with it. It's not, I know everything. Like, for instance, I work a lot with Aphrodite.
Yeah.
I work a lot with Dionysus. I can never know fully what they are. Not truly fully what they are.
I think I'm drawing the distinction between blind faith and confidence that this is real. Right. I can have faith that something.
Yeah.
I can have faith in something that's not real. Do you see what I mean? It's like I understand what you're saying. It's just
it's a failure of the word faith.
We're getting all the way back into language again. It's like, this is the point at which I would go, no, I will use the German word, because the German has a concept, but Germans can say this. We can't say this in English or no. In Cantonese, we don't put those two together. Or in Cantonese, that word is built from the radicals that make, you see this. You see what I mean? It's like, this is when you shift languages, because we are hitting the limitations of what it is. I know you know, and you know I know, and it's just like, I can't find the words right. And that's why poetry. Yeah, well, that's why poetry is amazing.
It's so vital.
Yeah, allusion and omission. It's like I can. It's like shadow puppets. It's like the words that I'm actually using is not what I want you to see is the dog on the wall, not the fingers. I don't. I'm getting.
Show me a magician that's not a poet, right? Show me a magician that's not a poet. I don't really know weird, any real.
When you say magician, I'm going. Do you mean cards, or do you mean playing cards or tarot cards? Oh, hang on, no, I know loads of magicians who use playing cards as tarot. Oh, it's just fuck. It's just it's weird for me to hear magician.
Yes.
Magician. Yeah.
It's part of the language. Like, if you're working in the realm of magic, if you're working in the realm of spirit, poetry is intrinsically linked. You can't operate without it. I don't think I don't think that is the language.
Yeah. I agree. It's like, once again, it's like storytelling, and as a performance spoken word performer, part of my power is to be able to use words to create worlds inside people's minds. It's to use words.
That's magic.
To reach inside their chest and squeeze their heart. I love that. I love, and also, like, setting up an expectation and then subverting it. It's or putting it wrong. It's like, there's a line from one of the poems that I do. It goes, as we connect, develop respect and mutual recognition, evolve as we have ignition, ignite, set light, initiate, and demonstrate in daily living, taking, balanced with giving. Are you receiving? Do you live what you believe in?
Mm.
Overthrow your state of mind. So that's where it is. That's where it is for me.
Jeez.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I think that's a good place to hang it up, my brother.
Awesome.
That's a good place for us to end.
Thank you so much for letting me babble and ramble at you. And yeah, I mean, like, it's going to be embarrassing to watch this back. So, but yeah,
you know what? Babble and ramble is where the magic is.
Yeah, exactly. It's all around the campfire. It's like,
for all you guys listening out there, I will put in the show notes where you can find Magnus and all of his great work. I hope that you go look, check him out, check out his Etsy shop, maybe buy yourself a little charm. But if you're interested in something even more spectacular, commission this guy to work with the Dwergar to build you something out of metal.
Yeah. Guaranteed, absolute confidentiality, guaranteed. I hold the tea. I do not spill it. Okay, so there you go. Whatever flavor you prefer.
Absolutely. And
thank you so much for this opportunity.
And when you are ready with the publishing of the method, you'll have to come back on.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I hadn't got that email this week, I would have just told you all right. but yeah,
then we wouldn't have gone into everything else. So
yeah. It is out there. It's out there in talking of weird, WYRD, Weird Zine, issues 1 and 2. You've frozen. I'm not supposed to say that. Damn it.
All right, brother. Oh.
You back? All right. Sorry, you went somewhere.
I'm back. That's okay. I go places. I just zip in and out of existence. That's what happens.
I'm just pretending to be frozen. It's okay. I am back. All right, cool. Okay. Well, it's like at the end of Police Squad. Every episode of Police Squad. All right, cool. Look, I have to go for dinner with my folks.